Okay, next. So Kamala Harris gave a 2-minute non-answer when asked a question directly about Vladimir Putin and him staying in power. Let's take a look and then I'll react.
And when the president was there, he gave a speech in Warsaw. It was well received by many, but he also said something that I think was received well by some, but kind of surprised others. He said that Vladimir Putin should no longer be the leader of Russia. Do you agree?
Listen, I think that you framed the point quite accurately and well, which is America's policy has been and will continue to be focused on the real issue at hand, which is one, the needs of the Ukrainian people, which we will continue to support through humanitarian assistance, through security assistance, but also ensuring that there's going to be serious consequence for Vladimir Putin and Russian aggression as it relates to Ukraine, which is why our policy from the beginning has been about ensuring that there are going to be real costs exacted against Russia in the form of severe sanctions, which we know are having a real impact and an immediate impact, not to mention the longer-term impact, which is about saying there's going to be consequence and accountability when you commit the kinds of atrocities that he is committing. And I think the president has been an extraordinary leader. To your point, Joy, I've been to Poland. I was in Romania. I've been to Europe, I think, probably at least 3 times in the last 4 months. I was in Munich, Germany, where I gave a speech at the Munich Security Conference. I was in France before that, speaking with heads of state about this issue, among many other issues, but most recently about this issue. And I will tell you, in sitting down with prime ministers and presidents, often the first thing they would say to me is thank you to the United States and this administration for bringing us together, for building the coalition, for reinvigorating the relationship between the United States and its NATO allies, reinvigorating the relationship and the importance of the relationship to the EU in terms of an issue like Ukraine, which is ultimately about one of the most important principles that we are fighting for, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Wow. So the question was, in case you forgot it after that long, rambling, babbling answer, should Putin no longer be the leader of Russia? Her first response is, you framed that point quite well. What point? She's asking a question. Should Putin no longer be the leader of Russia? You framed that point quite well. Then she goes on to talk about, I've been to Poland and Romania and Munich and France, and other world leaders always say to us, thank you, U.S. and this administration, for bringing us together. So you're not going to give an answer. That's what you're going to do, is you're not going to give an answer to the most direct question of all time. Should Putin no longer be the leader of Russia? You couldn't give a direct answer to that. Look, what's astonishing about Kamala is that she seems incapable of giving a direct answer on any question. She doesn't have the ability to go like yes or no and then explain it. And look, this leads to the issue of you come across as inauthentic. You come across as not trustworthy. Because a more artful politician, even if they're dodging the question, they would dodge it in a smoother way, where you're not even sure if they did dodge it, where you're walking away going, was that an answer? With her, you're going, oh, that definitely was not an answer. There was not even close to an answer in there. So how should she have answered the question? It's very simple. Should Putin no longer be the leader of Russia? The response to that is, President Biden was correct in saying our goal is not regime change. And then you go on to explain that further. And by the way, the reason why you say that is because you don't want to heighten tensions with a nuclear-armed power when we're in the situation that we're currently in, where there's a hot war in Ukraine, where Russia invaded Ukraine, and we have NATO troops just outside of Ukraine. And every sanction of the sun has been unleashed on Russia, not just hurting the government, but also hurting the people of Russia. You want to make sure you don't say anything or do anything that raises the stakes even further when we're already on, nuclear alert that's higher than what the normal is. It's, probably the U.S. is too, not just Russia. You have to give that answer. You have no choice but to give that answer. But she can't do it. And that's why Biden shoved his foot in his mouth when he said, man, this guy can no longer be the leader of Russia. And when he came out and clarified, he said, look, we're not changing our policy. Our policy is not regime change, but I was just expressing my emotional outrage. Guys, you're playing with fire, man. It's really, really bad. It's really dangerous to act as you're acting. And even after Biden clarified, she couldn't come out there and say, no, our goal is not regime change. You have to say that. You have to say that, even if at your highest aspiration, you're sanctioning Putin and the oligarchs with the hope that the oligarchs and/or the military might squeeze him out. You still should be like, our goal is not regime change. Because then also you give him a massive propaganda win, and he gets to turn around to his own population and say, see, big bad evil America, this is always what it was about. This is always what it was about. They hate you, they hate me, they hate Russia, and they're the aggressor. See, they're talking about overthrowing me. Look at what they're doing. So it's such a bad answer. It's so bad. By the way, there is no captain of the ship. Nobody's steering the ship. I mean, Biden has repeatedly stated no U.S. boots on the ground. That's good. But I certainly think that with all the sanctions that have been unleashed, that it's gone too far because now it's hurting Russian civilians. So I think he's gone too far even on the sanctions front. And it's just a scary situation when you feel like everybody's just sort of reacting in a very reflexive way. And that's how you sleepwalk into World War III. It is. And you don't hear direct answers, you don't hear clear answers, you don't hear leadership. You hear both Biden and Kamala Harris tripping over themselves and being like spineless, mushy politicians at the last moment that you would want them to be spineless, mushy politicians. So guys, for the love of God, just say no. The goal is not regime change. Just say no. It should have been the most obvious political layup ever, but instead you get babbling about here are all the things we should have done, and you frame the point quite well. And I've been to Poland and Romania and Munich and France. Remind me of when Sarah Palin was like, I could see Russia from Alaska. Like, what? Thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for bringing together the EU and NATO and all that stuff. You can give the response about, here's all the actions we have taken, but you have to lead with, our policy, our goal is not regime change. She couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. I'm perpetually amazed at how bad she is at this. I mean, she's not even in the spotlight that often, and her approval rating is still hovering around like 28%, which means every time she opens her mouth, people are rolling their eyes. And I'm sure that there's jockeying for position behind the scenes where, her and Mayor Pete and many others are angling to be the next president. But if this is all you got for public appearances, well, it's no wonder you're doing as bad as you are. Remember when she called herself a top-tier candidate? Remember that? She went from like one of the leaders of the Democratic primary to the second she started talking, immediately tanking. It's very similar to Hillary in that respect. But at least Hillary got through the primary. Kamala Harris didn't even make it to Iowa. Didn't even make it to the first contest. And you can see why with answers like this. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.